Hello, it is Debbie Ison here of Tranquil Awakenings. I'm a therapist and a therapy trainer. And as I'm just sat typing up some of my work right now, I've noticed that there is a little ladybird down there that has crawled across my keyboard. And it made me chuckle a little bit. And that is because prior to training as a hypnotherapist, I actually used to be rather afraid of ladybirds. Now, I couldn't consciously tell you what it was I didn't like about them. However, when I used to see a ladybird, it would make me feel physically like I wanted to be sick. I'd feel shaky and very, very uneasy. And I found this particularly difficult when I was a primary school teacher and I taught reception children, because I knew I was there as a role model and I had to keep it together so that those children didn't panic over this little ladybird. And luckily it was a fear that I was able to keep to that level, so though I disliked the ladybirds, I could still bear to look at them, and if I had to touch them I would do everything possible to avoid that. But on a couple of occasions when children put them on me, I was very quickly able to get rid of them whilst appearing fairly calm. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I wanted to explain to you how I overcame this fear. And it was when I was training as a hypnotherapist. And it was just something little that came up. The trainer wanted to find out if there was anything I had any fears or phobias of and show me different techniques to rectify it. And ladybirds presented itself. Now, me being me, I wanted to know where on earth that came from. So she chose to age regress me. Now, that's not something I would necessarily do with a client with a phobia or a fear, but that's what I felt was important for me therapeutically at that time. And I went back to actually being very, very small and being in my pram. And what it was specifically that I disliked was the sound of ladybirds' wings. So as soon as we had found that specific trigger, we could do something to change it. We could collapse the anchors that had been created, and once that was done, I no longer had any fear of them. Hence why I'm sat here talking to you now as this ladybird now crawls across my screen. You might even see it if you're very lucky. So what do I mean by anchors? So in our day-to-day life, our brain has to process information all the time. It needs to protect us, it needs to keep us safe, and it needs to provide us with the best methods to act and react at all times. And what can sometimes happen is when we have a heightened emotion, whether that's a good or bad emotion, it can become connected to whatever is going on in our surroundings at the time. So, for example, when I was a baby, perhaps I felt panicked or distressed at the same time as hearing that ladybird, and the two got merged together. Now, we have these anchors that can be triggered off at any time in our day-to-day lives. A really common example of that would be if you are listening to the radio and a song comes on, and all of a sudden you're back to where you were when you first heard it, or when something significant was happening in your life. So one of those for me would be the By the Way album by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. At the time when I used to play that as a teenager, I had quite a lot of difficult situations going on in my life. And so listening to that for a while would bring back those feelings and emotions and those memories. Now that no longer is a problem for me because I know how to sort that out. I recognise that sometimes these anchors can be very beneficial because they help us to retrieve a useful feeling state or emotion. However, at times they can be more problematic. And what it means is because of how fast the brain reacts, before we know it, we can be being triggered off and we may not even be familiar with why that happened. There may be no conscious awareness because it happens so fast. So what I do within my work, not only with fears and phobias, but also with different traumatic events that have happened within people's lives, is we work on separating the emotional response, the heightened emotion, from the event that created it. And there are loads of different ways to do that. And what it means is it's really beneficial because it means that people are no longer reacting to some sort of stimulus within their environment, something they see, hear or feel, which may not be beneficial to them. Instead, it allows them to make calm, measured choices and more rational decisions. So as I say, lots of different ways to work with anchors, collapsing anchors where we need. So I might use something called integral eye movement therapy, which is where we look at lots of different components. Sort of we look at identity and we use eye movements as part of that to shift the unhelpful programs. I might use tapping based therapies such as EFT or TFT, where we tap on acupressure points and it releases the trauma. I might use NLP based techniques. So I'm looking at how the mind is structuring that thought process and then using body language and language to change and alter that so that it no longer has the same reaction. Or I may be using hypnosis so that we can change how we perceive that original event. Lots and lots of different ways of working with it, and I tend to use a combination with my clients depending on whatever's needed. And it is powerful. It is very, very liberating to free yourself from something that has been triggering an unwanted emotional response or state within you. So I would say to you, if you have any phobias, any fears, anything that anyone says or does to you that can trigger an unhelpful emotional response, you can sort it, and it can be sorted quickly. The brain learns remarkably fast, and that means we can also change these patterns very quickly when we have the tools to know how to do that. So if you need to, go and seek some support, find a YouTube video on how to do it yourself, do whatever's necessary to create those shifts within your mind so that you can be aligned with who you want to be now, living your life to the fullest and only being triggered by the things that you want to be triggered by. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great day, and please remember to like and subscribe. Take care and bye-bye for now.